Hi, this is Ijama, and before this week's episode starts, I just wanted to make a quick announcement. In the new year, I'm going to be starting a mailbag or Twitter bag where I'll ask a question or ask for commentary, and out of everyone who responds, I'll select one respondent and I'll promo your Etsy shop or your business or your personal brand in this spot right here before the episode begins. Quick 30 seconds. You tell me exactly what you want me to say. Thank you.
Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining us, or joining me and my guest this week. If you need to reach out to me, I'm available via email. You can email interview@convome.com. I'm also on Twitter @convomepodcast. And if you want updates on what's going on with the podcast, visit the Facebook page on Facebook, Etsy Conversations Podcast. And if you just want to join in a conversation with other Etsy sellers and other guests who have been on this podcast or who are coming on to the podcast, you can also join the Etsy Conversations Facebook group. And to get to that, you can go to Facebook and search for Etsy Conversations, or just go to convome.com/Facebook group. And that's it. This week, my guest is Aria, and I'm glad to have Aria on the podcast. She runs the Etsy shop Akasa Kreations, and she's coming up very soon in about 4 days on her 1-year anniversary, or her Etsyversary. I just came up with that word. I've never heard it before. And she opened her Etsy shop on January 4th, 2014. And to date, as of this recording, she has made 73 sales and she has 22 5-star reviews. Aria, thank you for being my guest and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be on here. So I am Aria Valancourt. As was said, I do run the business Akasa Kreations, and I specialize in providing metaphysical tools for people. So I basically create crystal healing grids, wands, and necklaces that are meant to be meditation pieces for people to develop themselves and to basically better their energies and to develop characteristics that they feel they need to in order to bring themselves more success. So that is what I focus on, and that is what I sell.
Excellent. Thanks, Aria. So now, why did you pick Etsy?
I picked Etsy because my mom of Naos Glass, she actually has an Etsy store, and so the concept was readily available to me. I saw my mom run it for over 6 years before I decided to open my own, so it was just kind of around as I was growing up, and it was just one day something that she suggested, maybe you should do it, you should try it, and so I gave it a whirl, and here I am.
Oh, great. Do you want to tell us what your mom's Etsy shop is? Do you think she would mind?
No, not at all. I'm sure she would love it. So, her Etsy shop is called Naos Glass, and she makes lampwork beads. And they're very beautiful, very organic, soft colors in browns, oranges, nice blues, and greens. So a lot of people like her work. It's very unique because it offers an earthy palette, and she sells also Mykonos beads. A lot of jewelry designers love to go to her for supplies to design their own.
Oh, excellent. Thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
So when you opened your Etsy shop this year, what was your original intention?
So my original intent was a career for myself. I was a person that I really wanted to pursue my creative talents and my creative passions, and I decided why not make my own job at it and try it out. And that's exactly what I did. I basically set it up so that it could be a full-time way for me to support myself while I'm pursuing my passion.
Oh, excellent. So right now, are you doing Etsy full-time, or do you have a job outside of Etsy?
I do not have a job outside of Etsy, and I do it full-time. So it is my full income, and it did not start out as enough money to support myself, but because I have a very lovely family network, people helped me along and they supported me through when I needed money and needed to buy supplies and other things. And I'm now getting to the point where I can fully support myself and pay all my bills and just do it on my own.
Great job, Aria. So how soon after you started did you did you break even? And then how long after that did you then become profitable?
I would say my first 6 months of my store, I wasn't doing it full time. I was only doing it part time. So I'd say I really started breaking even when I invested in it full time, which was in August. So I've really only been doing it full time for about 3 months. I put in as much work as somebody does in a full time job. I do 40 or more hours a week. So that is 8 hours a day. And then I do give myself 2 days off, just kind of like a normal work schedule.
Yeah.
So that's where I really started to notice a significant jump in sale, a significant change is when I started putting more energy and more time into it. Naturally, more people heard about me, became interested, and then would buy my things.
Oh, wow. Nice. So how do you organize your day? So you're doing it full time, so you don't have the distraction of another job outside. How do you organize your day between creating and then doing administrative work that needs to get done?
I usually break it into small chunks of a couple hours throughout the day. So instead of just working a straight 8 hours like you do at a normal job, I'll wake up in the morning, I'll work for 2 or 3 hours. I usually start with my administrative tasks in the morning. I check my email, I check my Facebook, I reach out to customers, and then usually about middle of the day, I start making different things, start following through on some of my ideas, trying out new products, and it's typically towards the nighttime that I again check all my administrative things, see if any orders, all my shipping and packaging it, the night before. I ship it out the next day pretty much for most of my chunks throughout the day, and that really helps me maintain my focus and helps it be very manageable.
So Aria, let's talk about what inspires and motivates you to create the products that you do. What's the idea behind your products? Because they have a unique, what's the word I'm looking for? Attributes. They're not just like regular jewelry. Is that correct?
Yes. So the whole concept, the basic concept behind my products is I believe that you can capture people's personalities. So essentially you can capture certain traits like ambition, harmony, or intellect with crystals and using different types of energy. So my jewelry pieces are all about meditation. Essentially, I'm creating a tool that aligns with certain ideas. So if somebody wants to develop, say, harmony in their life, I create a necklace that's centered around the idea of harmony, and then when they wear the necklace, they can focus on that idea. And by naturally focusing and meditating on the idea of harmony, they will generate that in their life and focus more on that energy, so it will be productive for them. So what I choose to do is I create a wide range of energy and focus points for people to meditate on, whether that be, again, ambition, harmony, intellect, or expression, communication, finding personal truth. And that way, they feel drawn to a characteristic that's within themselves, and the jewelry point basically just creates a focal point for that. So I'm very into meditation, and I know a lot of people have a hard time just meditating on their own and being inside their head. So by creating an object like a wand or a crystal grid or selling a crystal or creating crystal healing necklaces, it's a tool that they can help focus on that makes it much easier for them to think the thoughts that they need to develop those traits.
So can someone contact you and say they want something specific, like if they, like a custom
order?
Yeah.
I do accept custom.
Okay.
Frequently, actually. Yes.
Okay. All right. Do you know if there are other Etsy shops that sell items similar to yours?
I've seen a lot of different metaphysical shops that will sell wands, crystals, and various things. I think they're a little bit different from mine. I focus more on empowering other people. I notice a lot of metaphysical shops, they sell objects that are already meant to give somebody a certain energy. I let people choose the energy that they want.
I see.
And so it's kind of, my way of doing it is more open-ended, where somebody feels just attracted to what they are attracted to. And so I have seen very similar shops, and there are people that sell similar things, but I think my business concept is a little bit different, so it naturally translates into a different style and just a different feel.
Okay. So more often than not, do you have people asking you for something specific, or do you create something and people just buy what you've already made?
I have both.
Okay.
Usually just create necklaces, and people love to buy them. I feel like people are just attracted to what they need or what they want, and so I kind of let that take its course. So I do sell a lot of already pre-made things, but I leave it open for people to be very specific because, again, since I am focusing on meditation and personal development, empowering somebody and giving them a sense of enlightenment and freedom, a lot of people do want it to be more personal, specific situation. So I leave that open-ended as well. I just recently got a large order for crystal grids based on the zodiac. My customer had requested each one for the different zodiac signs in astrology, so that was my latest project, and that was very fun and challenging.
Do you do like well, I guess, well, okay, let me ask the question anyway, because when I just played the question back in my head, I thought, no, that's a dumb question, but
okay.
I will ask it. So some Etsy sellers are able to do something like wholesale orders where you make them en masse. Now, because of the nature of what you're making, is wholesaling it even possible because it's a very personal type of product?
Yes, it is. Wholesaling is still absolutely possible. Just simply because of the fact that I had that in mind. I do sell to some local stores in my area. I live in Arvada, Colorado, so there are a lot of stores in Arvada that I've sold wholesale my jewelry to them, and it's completely possible. The large order that I had for the grids, it was 24 grids, and my customer was purchasing them for their business as well to resell them, and to have them as part of their business. So I do offer wholesale.
Okay. Oh, okay, good. Well, I'm glad I asked then.
Yeah.
Now you're doing this full time. Would you say that selling on Etsy has changed your life in any way? Most young people don't. I assume you're young. I don't know how old you are, but
Going 19.
I thought so. I heard youth in your voice.
Yes.
Yeah, so most don't take the path that you're taking. Has Etsy made the difference that you expected it to? And do you anticipate that you're going to stay on this path?
Yes, it's absolutely changed my life. I think the most important way that it's changed my life is it's taught me a lot about perseverance, being able to follow your passion, stick to your guns. When I first came up with the concept for my Etsy store, I was 16 years old. I was still in high school. And during that period, since I wasn't 18, I wasn't an adult, I couldn't get my business license and do all of the official documentation.
Oh.
I own my store. So the approach that I took to it was that I had my mom around and I saw her store. So I built up my skills for Etsy for over 2 years before I physically opened my own store. So I learned everything about how to list, how to take photos of your products. I got all the tips and tricks from my mom. I helped her with her store, actually, and I sold in her store for a little bit just to get the feel of things. Mm-hmm. And so it completely changed my life in that it's taught me to be very responsible and self-efficient. And it's also taught me that you can follow your passions and you can absolutely succeed in following your passions. A lot of people, they have these, what they call hobbies. They're very scared to go into it full time, but it's something that they love to do. And it taught me not to be scared. It taught me that you should follow your heart absolutely wherever it leads you, and that you will find success when you do so.
Man, Arya, you are the kind of inspiration I want people to hear. Like, your story is so inspiring, and it's such a different path. But go on, you were going to say something more.
Yes, and so I did actually get a lot of criticism, quite a bit, actually quite vicious and ferocious criticism for what I was doing because it was so different. Most of my teachers in high school didn't understand what owning your own business was. It wasn't a concept they could easily wrap their mind around. And they were sitting there going, you're only 16. There's no way you're going to be able to do this. And I stuck to my guns. And I think a lot of people might feel that way. They want to do their own business. They want to create something of their own. But they either doubt themselves or they have people around them that doubt them. So I basically just had to build a very strong conviction and know it was my path. And I definitely feel like I'm going to be pursuing this for the rest of my life. Now that I've gone through this process and I know that I have the strength to establish my own schedule, create my own career, and follow my passion, I'm not going to be giving that up. I know that it's possible, so I will be continuing to do it.
Right. And the funny thing is, a lot of people discover that later on in life. So they go through the more traditional path, and which is for some people. It's not for everyone. And the ones who it's not for and tend to discover it later on. You're just bypassing that journey and getting right on it.
Yeah, I'm just getting right there. And a lot of my inspiration for that comes from the wisdom that my parents passed down onto me. That was my mom. She tried to go to college. She worked a lot of different careers, and about 7 years ago, she was just sitting there going, I'm doing this lamp work. It's a hobby. It's something on the side. I'm making money. I want to do it full time. I want to take the risk. She quit her job and she did it full time. And she's been a successful business owner for over 7 years, has completely supported herself, has 3 kids, including me. So she's done an excellent job. And she was mainly the inspiration to show me that that was absolutely possible. And so that's why I just decided to do it, is because I saw both of my parents run their own businesses, and I saw them pursuing their passions, and I said, why wait? I can just do that now. I can do the same thing.
Wow. That is excellent. Maybe we'll hear from your mom too one day on the podcast.
Sure.
Wow, I love that story, and I'm glad to hear it, because I think it will inspire other people. I know there are lots of young people on Etsy. I've seen lots of young people on Etsy. I've communicated with some of them, who reach out and ask questions, or or are trying to make their way through. And I think it's just excellent, that there aren't any age barriers. I didn't put 2 and 2 together about the need having to be of legal age to have a business license until you said it. I thought, oh yeah, you can't.
I had to wait till I was 18, and I made sure to get it all official and to get it straightened out. I think a lot of people, they get very intimidated by filling out the paperwork and very intimidated by the legal process.
Yes.
Here in Colorado, since it is full-time and I do support myself, I have to pay my own income taxes, so that does mean I have to file a business license with the state, and, I have to keep track of all my numbers, how much I spend, how much income I'm making, and at the end of the year, just do taxes like everybody else does.
Yeah.
And so just decided, I'll wait till I can get it all official, all set up, and that's the first thing I did before I even opened my Etsy store. I got all my business bank accounts ready, I got my account set up, I got everything hooked up, got my business license, got it official, and then I opened my store.
Oh, wow. There's so much people can learn from you, Aria, because you did it correctly from day one. Yeah, and you knew it wasn't going to be a hobby. I think sometimes when people fall into it, it is still kind of a hobby, or it's a way that they're just making extra money on the side, and a lot of people don't consider it a business. But from day one, you were like right on that track. You knew it.
Yes. Well, and I mean, I make a lot of different things, so I don't just do my business. I also publish books. So I have 4 self-published books of my own poetry, and I also just recently published a mandala coloring book at the beginning of the year. So, and I published my first book when I was 16. I did it through Lulu, and so I've been an entrepreneur for years before I opened my business, so it wasn't a foreign concept to me. It was something that I was just very attracted to and kind of naturally did. And I think a lot of people, they are happy with just keeping their passions as hobbies or just making that extra money on the side, and I think that's perfectly fine. I think you can do it both ways. You can keep it on the side or you can do it full-time. I think it's pretty open-ended, and I think people should just pick the option which is most comfortable for that.
Yeah, and you're right.
And for me, it was
yes, and that's good, because everyone's motivation is different. Okay, Aria, let's talk about promoting your Etsy shop. First, how do you generate excitement about your products and what you're selling? And then how do you promote your shop?
So the best way I generate excitement about my products is centering my products around ideas. I think a lot of times when people sell a product, they're focusing on selling the product and the object itself. The best way to generate excitement about your products is to come up with an idea, come up with something that is a little bit deeper behind, a story, a meaning, a symbol of what your product means. And people, it's more personal for people to connect to. So if I'm talking about personal characteristics in life, ambition, goals, and somebody feels like that's what they need to develop, they're automatically going to connect to the piece. Whereas if I was just marketing it as, oh, this is a carnelian necklace, they may be attracted to it, they may think it's pretty, but it doesn't go that extra mile that they establish a personal connection. So I think that's very key to be able to advertise your items in such a way where people can personally connect to them and they're relevant.
Yes.
And after that point, I put a lot of energy into my descriptions, writing stories, giving a sense of, the personality, the type of person that's going to want to buy this piece. I focus a lot on that. And then after I've built my story and I've put my listing up, I advertise on social media. That's my main way of marketing. And so I do it on Facebook through different Facebook groups. There's tons of promotion groups that you can join on Facebook where you can post links to your Etsy. Other Etsy sellers kind of bump up your items, favorite things, share ideas with people, ask questions. If you have any problems, you can kind of ask them. Etsy teams are another great way to promote yourself on Etsy. You can join various teams that they each play little promotion games and they kind of help get the word out about you. They make treasuries for all the team members and stuff. So those, I think, through Facebook and through Etsy teams are the two most important ways that I advertise myself.
How did you decide which Etsy teams you were going to belong to?
I think how I established my Etsy teams was I did it through Facebook first. So I joined a lot of groups on Facebook, and some of those groups also had Etsy teams. So I made sure to join teams that I'd already been involved in for a long time. I liked the members. It was a very supportive community. I built a lot of friendships and connections, and those were specifically the types of places I joined because I wanted a personal connection. I wanted to be able to talk to people, have people with common interests as me. So those are the teams that I chose to join. So these are teams that focus on metaphysics and spirituality, or they're teams that focus on my craft like crystals or macrame or different things like that I could easily connect to these people and we shared very similar process.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense. It's very logical. Of the social media outlets, so you're in Facebook groups, do you use social media in any other way or are you on any other social media platforms?
Yes, I'm actually on a ton of social media platforms because I believe that the more social media platforms you join, the more interest you can generate. Each one works a little bit differently. It is hard to keep up with all of them. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Google+, Pinterest, Wanelu, and Twitter. Primarily. Those are my top 5.
Which one do you think gives you the best return on your time investment?
I would have to say Facebook.
Yeah. Okay. And that's through the groups.
And that's through the groups, and that's through actively communicating with people and actively advertising. I see a lot of businesses on Facebook, and they might post once a week. I post several times every day. And what really gets a lot of traffic coming to me is I don't just post my products, I also share products of my friends that I really enjoy and I like. So I'm not only sharing my own work, I'm sharing other people's work. And it naturally creates a community because it creates an incentive for everybody to help each other because as people are scrolling through my Facebook page, my personal Facebook page, they're seeing these other businesses that I'm promoting, and then they're also seeing my stuff. And so other businesses really appreciate when you promote their work, so in turn, they'll usually promote you, and it's just a cycle of growth.
Okay, well, that's a good idea. Do you do any blogging? Do you have a website outside of just selling on Etsy?
I do video, I guess you could call it video blogging through YouTube. So I also have a YouTube channel under the same name, Akasa Kreations, and It's basically the exploration of different philosophical concepts and metaphysics. So I explain how crystal healing works. I explain different quotes. I explain the ideas of meditation, energy, focus, self-transformation. So I explain a lot of the concepts that go behind my business in a much deeper sense. And it's all through video, so people can see me in person. I'm talking. They can connect to the ideas or not connect to the ideas. I know a lot of the things I explore, they aren't for everyone, and that is absolutely okay.
Right.
So I just leave the videos there for people to explore to get a better understanding about what I do. And so I guess that would be my form of blogging.
Yeah. Do you refer to your products at all, like try and draw your YouTube channel subscribers or people who view your videos to your Etsy shop at all, or is it primarily just for information sharing?
I do both.
Okay.
Try not to mark too much on my YouTube because I don't want people to feel like I'm selling
Right.
something. I want them to feel very comfortable and just have the energy to invest in something they want to. I don't want to push myself onto them. So I do always mention my business. I mention what I do in the descriptions, and I'll sometimes talk about it, and I'll relate my personal experiences about my business, but I don't pressure people into buying anything. I don't advertise my sales. I don't fully advertise my products. It's something that's mentioned so that if they're naturally interested, they can go look it up on their own.
Okay. So now when you get a new idea for a product, typically how long is the process from inception to listing it on Etsy, creating the product and then listing it on Etsy?
It depends. Sometimes the turnaround can be as fast as a day. Sometimes the turnaround can be a couple weeks. It depends on how motivated and invested in the project I am. There are a lot of longer term projects like my mandalas and my crystal grids and the artwork that I do. That takes a lot more time and focus, so those are going to be the ones that might take a couple weeks because I'm going through a longer process to make them. Most of my necklaces I can make in a day, and then I'll usually list them the day or a couple days afterwards. So it's pretty fast. I guess it more just depends on the product that I'm creating.
And actually, I'm glad you mentioned this again, because I meant to ask you earlier when you said earlier in the year you published your first mandala coloring book. What is
Yes.
mandala? I don't know. Can you tell?
Okay. Mandalas are fascinating things. A lot of people don't know what mandalas are, so it's always fun to explain.
Okay.
So mandalas come from Eastern philosophy, and basically what a mandala is it's a picture, and it's a bunch of different symbols. So you use colors, shapes, symbols, and ideas. It's basically a piece of art that captures ideas. So, and that's what I use it for. So when you look at a lot of Eastern mandalas, they're typically Buddhist, and they'll depict Buddhist mythology. So they'll depict different ideas, concepts, different deities. You also see this in Hindu mythology as well. It's very common in Eastern philosophy. And so I kind of took those and I use them as well. The fun thing that I like to do is find colors and shapes and different patterns that match people's personalities so that they can connect to them and feel welcome with them. And so basically the mandala, it's just another meditation piece. It's just like my necklaces. It's energy that creates a focus on a certain personality. And I've seen this a lot of times, especially with astrology, since I study astrology. Most of my astrology grids, we all know pretty much our sun signs. You know, you might be Scorpio or you might be a Gemini. And so I create mandalas that are shapes and colors that focus on the traits associated with that astrological sign. And I've always found that when I introduce those pieces to the people that share that astrological sign, they instantly connect to it. They love the colors. They feel so vibrant when they're around that artwork. And that's exactly what I strive for, is creating pieces that people feel a personal connection to. They want to be around it. They just love it. It makes them happy.
Oh. So then my next question might not really apply because it sounds, well, okay. Do you ever find that you get in a creative rut? Because it just seems like the process you use, there's just always something coming up. But do you find that sometimes you're running dry creatively?
Sometimes I delve into so many different hobbies. This is how I keep my interest and my energy going. I don't pick just one thing. I see a lot of people when they have a hobby, they'll just pick one thing and they'll burn out on it. I make sure that I dabbled into a little bit of everything. I do seed beading, I do macrame, I do photography, I write, I draw. So whenever I get bored or burnt out in one area, I focus my energy on new. And then it's refreshing because now I have new ideas. It's a different medium. It's a completely different process. And one of the ways that I actually help gain my inspiration, because I do focus so much on concepts and ideas, is I actually watch documentaries and inspirational videos, and that'll usually spark an idea to create something. That's primarily how I get my interest back, is watching inspirational videos.
What types of documentaries do you like to watch?
I watch mainly documentaries on spiritual ideas, religions, mythologies, and histories. So it's kind of all about how people think, the concepts they come up with, how people believe the world works. That all sparks a lot of interest for me personally. So I tie my personal interest that really into my business, and I try to connect the two.
Okay. So before you came onto Etsy, I think you already went over this before, but I just want us to focus on this again,
Okay.
because you had time, you knew what you wanted to do, and so you had time to plan ahead. But
Yes.
can you bullet point for someone who is listening, who is also not yet on Etsy, but is planning to start selling on Etsy, the steps that you took to ensure that you were successful? So, well, I don't know how you can summarize it, because I'm sure there was a lot that went into it, but...
No, I've actually answered this question for a lot of people. Very curious on how I got started. So the first thing I did is I did not focus on Etsy at all. I focused on building my skills. So I knew that I was going to open a store, and because I couldn't do it at that time, I decided to build up my talents. So essentially, okay, I want to sell macrame jewelry, so I learned everything I could about macrame. I practiced, I honed my skill, I made a lot of mistakes early on when I didn't have my store, so that's why my objects appear more professional and more put together, is because I took the time to work out the kinks in my own style and to build my skills. So I think that's the very first point to start, is you need the skills to make your objects and make them professional and make them sellable and make them attractive. So I think that's the best place to start to establish a firm foundation. After that, I would say browse different Etsy stores. I think I do this all the time just for fun. Not in any competitive nature, but just because I like to see what other people do. I browse other people's Etsy stores. I looked at their policies, I looked at how they set up their store, how they marketed themselves, what their products look like, the process they went through, and that was very helpful for me to decide what I liked and what I didn't like. So I took little bits and pieces from each store of things that I saw that I liked. You know, some people had snazzy banners, some people didn't have banners in their store at all. You know, everybody does it a different way. So I kind of just took all the characteristics I liked, and over time, I mean, my situation might be a little bit different because I did have the opportunity to work in my mom's Etsy store without establishing my own. So I definitely got an advantage to build my skill sets first.
Okay.
I don't think a lot of people are in that situation. So I would say the best thing to do is practice. Look at as many tutorials as you can. Watch as many videos as you can. Get as much information as possible on how to take photos, how to use social media to sell your things, buy books on how to run your own business, and just get a firm foundation of what it's going to take, and make sure you set very accomplishable goals. Set tiny little goals that you know you can achieve and make them harder each time. So, you know, slowly build your way up to a shop. I think a lot of people, they try to open their store, they haven't prepared, they don't know what to do, they're intimidated, they can't figure it out. It's all very confusing. So I would say if that's you, figure it all out before you open your store so that you feel comfortable and confident, and that will naturally result in increased sales and just a more professional appearance.
Excellent. Yeah, well, that's pretty straightforward.
Yep.
What would you say, or would you say there's one lesson so far in this past year that you've been selling on Etsy that you learned the hard way?
I think the lesson that I've learned the most is not to restrict myself too much. I'm a very creative person, so each person's going to approach their business differently. You may be more logical, so it might require more structure, methodical planning, or you might be more creative, so you might just kind of go with the flow and just test things as they come. I am a little bit of both. So my hard lesson was learning how to create structure for myself so that I stayed focused, but not create enough so that I felt restricted. It took a very long time for me to find a balance and just being able to explore what I wanted to do and follow my passion, but still have it being structured enough that I could make a living off of it. So I think that's a lesson I had to learn by just jumping into the water and just doing it, is learning how to balance it out so it was comfortable for me, the pace was easy, and I was feeling fulfilled.
Oh, good. Now, if there was a feature on Etsy that you could have, if given the choice, that doesn't exist right now, what would you ask for?
To be honest, I really like Etsy the way it is.
Oh, great.
I don't think I would be comfortable with their system. I feel like I have a good handle on it, and so I don't think I'd change anything.
All right. So let's see. What would you say is something that you're doing right now with your Etsy business that's working really well for you?
I think the biggest thing that I did was find my specialization. So when I first started out, it was a hobby store, basically. I was selling as a hobby. I was just making all these different things. None of them matched. None of them fit together. They were just random stuff that I was making. And when I was putting them up, it wasn't coherent. It wasn't cohesive. It didn't say me. And so the most successful thing that I've done is I've established I sell meditative tools, so I make sure that everything I make now focuses on that concept. So all my products now flow together. They're all along the same idea. They're each different, but they have a style that's recognizable as me now, whereas before it was just kind of all over the place. So I think that's the greatest thing I'm doing right now that's working to my benefit, is being able to kind of have all of my items be unique but still fit a theme that was easily recognizable as my work.
So Aria, for 2015, we're going into a new year. What plans do you have for Akasa Kreations for 2015?
I have a lot of different plans, actually. So, one of the things that I was really looking into doing when I initially started my Etsy and I just didn't have the money to do it was to start selling prints of my artwork. I do a lot of artwork outside of Etsy that never gets there, and I'm slowly transitioning. My crystal healing grids and my mandala prints are just some of my artwork. I'm just starting to get to the point where I can sell them in a manageable way. It's very expensive to get prints of your, which is why I couldn't invest in it initially. But that is something I'm hoping to expand into next year, is making t-shirts with my artwork, doing prints and posters of my artwork. And so that just gives people a little bit extra. That's kind of now going more into the home decor apparel area. So it reaches a different customer base, and it gives people some fun stuff. So they can get a necklace and a shirt, or if they just like the art, they can get a nice little poster for their home and do it that way.
Nice. And so everything will be housed under Akasa Kreations. You're not going to split up and have an apparel line and an apparel shop and an art shop. Everything is all going to be under one?
It'll all be under Akasa Kreations. And the reason why I've chosen to do that is just simply because the fundamental concept behind my business is the same. I would recommend that if you have two different business concepts, create two different businesses. Don't try to merge two concepts that aren't the same. Because I'm still working with meditation, self-transformation, and helping people grow, the artwork naturally fits into that. The necklaces fit into that. Even the shirts would fit into that because it's an expression of who a person is, their identity, and what they like. So it all still fits under the same concept, and that's why I'm just keeping it all under the one.
I see. Aria, you are an inspiring woman. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I've enjoyed learning about you. Now, if people want to reach out to you, how can they get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me is you can either message me on Facebook. I actually have 3 different pages on Facebook. I have my personal account, Aria Valancourt, which you can contact me. I have my business page, Akasa Kreations, which you can contact me, devoted to my video blogging, which is called Exploration of Philosophy and Metaphysics. You can contact me on any of those 3 pages. The other is through email, so you can you can send an email to akasacreations@gmail.com. So it's going to be akasakreations@gmail.com.
Thank you. And I will have links to all of Akasa's to all of Aria's contact information. So if you didn't have a chance to write all that down, go to convome.com, look for Akasa Creations, and all of Aria's contact information will be on there. Aria, thank you once again for being my guest on the podcast.
Oh, I had a lot of fun, and thank you for inviting me to join you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I will be back next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.